Space was quiet. Too quiet. The stars burned as they always had, shining across the endless dark, but something new had disturbed that silence. A single message moved through the black, bouncing from relay to relay, crossing systems, reaching every ear that could hear. It was a call for help, an SOS signal. The message was weak, broken by static, but the meaning was clear. Someone somewhere was under attack. The galaxy had grown used to distress calls. Pirates attacked trade ships every year. Border wars flared between small empires. Stray fleets clashed for control of resources. But this signal was different. There was fear in it, a desperate cry. It carried not only words, but the sound of people screaming. Before the channel cut off, most species ignored it. They heard the distress, but they turned away because they knew who had sent it. It came from a colony on the far edge of settled space near the rim. That colony belonged to humanity, and everyone in the galaxy knew one thing. Wherever humans lived, trouble followed. For generations, the other empires whispered about Earth's people. They were bold, too bold. They built ships that looked more like weapons than transports. They trained soldiers even in times of peace, and they carried with them a history of wars, rebellions, and victories that had shaken even the strongest alien nations. So when the SOS call came, the galaxy chose silence, but humanity did not, high above Earth. In orbit, the deadliest fleet of mankind was already on alert. Its flagship, a massive dreadnought called Iron Resolve, stood like a fortress in space. The ship stretched for miles, covered in steel, towers, and guns. Its engines glowed like small suns. Around it, dozens of cruisers, destroyers, and carriers floated in perfect formation. This was the fleet other races feared to see. This was the fleet that had never known defeat. When the SOS signal reached them, alarms echoed across the command decks. Officers and soldiers moved quickly, preparing for orders. Inside the command chamber, Admiral Joran Hale, commander of the fleet, listened to the broken message. His face was hard, his voice calm. "Play it again," he said. The sound filled the room. The words cracked with static. "Attack! Need help!" "They are everywhere." "Please, anyone?" Then came screams. Then silence. The officers exchanged uneasy looks. Some clenched their fists. Others lowered their heads. The admiral stood still for a long moment. Finally he spoke. "Set the course." "We answer the call." The chamber filled with nods and firm voices. No one questioned him. Humanity had always answered its own. And if the galaxy would not come to help, then Earth's fleet would go alone. Engines lit across the fleet. The glow of power burned brighter and brighter until the black of space shone with human fire. One by one, the giant ships moved into position, their guns armed, their shields charged. The smaller escort ships circled them like wolves ready for the hunt. From the surface of Earth, people looked up and saw the fleet leave orbit, each ship disappearing into faster-than-light jump. To them, it was not just a fleet. It was hope. The SOS call had reached the right ears, but deep in space, the source of that message still burned. The colony was called Haven Reach. It had once been a thriving world, green and alive. Families had settled there, building cities on its riversides and farms across its wide plains. Now smoke covered its skies. Towers lay broken. Fires spread across the ground. Above the planet, wrecks of human defense ships floated silently. They had fought, but they had not been enough. The attackers had not left. They waited. Silent ships, black and sharp, hung in the void like shadows. Their weapons glowed with strange energy. Their movements were slow but certain, like predators circling prey. On the last station orbiting Haven Reach, a handful of survivors still lived. Their power was fading. Their air was thin. They had sent the SOS call, and now they waited. Some prayed, some cried. None believed help would come, but then their scanners flickered. A new signal appeared, dozens of ships emerging from hyperspace. Massive glowing engines. A formation so sharp it looked carved from steel. The survivors gasped. Their weak screens lit up, showing the fleet in perfect detail. "It's them," one whispered. "It's Earth's fleet." For the first time in days, hope returned, and for the attackers still waiting in the dark. Fear returned. The galaxy called it the Deadliest fleet for a reason. The humans had arrived. The void of space rumbled with the first words of Admiral Hale, broadcast to every ship, every survivor, and every enemy listening. This is the fleet of Earth. To all who sent the call, hold on. You are not alone. To those who brought this war to our people, we are coming. The silence of space shattered. The SOS signal had been answered. Humanity was on the move, and the galaxy would soon remember why humans were feared. The deadliest fleet of humanity did not travel quietly. When their ships tore through the fabric of hyperspace, even the void itself seemed to shiver. One by one, the massive dreadnoughts, cruisers, and destroyers appeared above the colony world called Haven Reach. Their engines glowed like small suns, their guns already armed, their hulls reflecting the light of the nearby star. The survivors on the last orbital station watched in silence. For days, they had waited for death. Now, as the human fleet appeared in formation, their tired eyes filled with tears. "They came," one survivor whispered. "They actually came." On the flagship Iron Resolve, Admiral Hale stood on the command deck. His gaze was fixed on the broken world below. His officers gave him reports: ships destroyed, colonies burning, civilians missing. The numbers told a story of tragedy. But Hale did not need numbers. The smoke rising from the planet's surface spoke enough. The Admiral raised a hand. "Broadcast to all ships. Begin scans. Search for survivors. Prepare rescue wings." Engines roared across the fleet. Dropships and scout craft broke away, racing toward the ruined stations and cities below. Their scanners swept the system, searching for faint life signs. But the scans showed more than survivors. Strange signals appeared. Shadows moving in the dark. Unknown shapes hidden among the wreckage. The officers looked at one another. "Admiral, we're not alone." Hale's eyes narrowed. "I know." Far away, among the ruins of destroyed colonies, the enemy waited. Their ships were black as stone, shaped like blades, their hulls marked with glowing veins of alien energy. They had been hiding, silent and patient, waiting to see who would answer the SOS call. Now their prey had arrived. The first attack came without warning. A shadowed ship darted out from behind the broken remains of a human station. Its weapons lit up, firing streams of burning plasma toward one of the smaller escorts in the fleet. The human destroyer shuddered under the impact, its shields flashing bright, but it held firm. Alarms rang through the Iron Resolve. "They're here!" a voice shouted. Across the black void, more enemy ships uncloaked. Dozens, then hundreds. They surrounded Haven Reach like a swarm. Their movements were sharp, animal-like, as if guided by instinct rather than tactics. The survivors on the station screamed. They had hoped for salvation. Now they feared the humans had walked into a trap, but the Admiral did not flinch. "All ships," Hale ordered, his voice steady. "Form battle line. Shields forward. Protect the survivors." Like a single living beast, the human fleet moved. Dreadnoughts took the center. Cruisers spread to the flanks. Destroyers and corvettes darted into guard positions. The smaller carriers released fighter wings, hundreds of them, each glowing with deadly purpose. The first clash lit up the dark. Human cannons roared, spitting fire across the void. Massive shells tore through enemy hulls. Beams of white-hot energy cut across the swarm. Missiles streaked, their trails burning like falling stars. The alien ships answered with their own fury. Plasma blasts and crackling lightning weapons struck human shields, shaking even the largest dreadnoughts. But the fleet held together, each ship protecting the other, every line unbroken. The survivors on the station watched in awe. For the first time, they saw the full strength of Earth's deadliest fleet. They saw ships that did not retreat, soldiers that did not bend. They saw humanity fight not for glory, but for survival. And the enemy noticed it too. Minutes turned into hours. The battlefield became a graveyard of wreckage. Alien ships exploded, scattering fragments into the void. Human fighters weaved between the swarm, tearing holes in their lines. The larger human ships pressed forward slowly, like iron walls pushing back a tide. Yet something felt wrong. The enemy was not fighting with full strength. Their attacks were wild, chaotic, like animals testing their prey. They struck hard, then pulled away. They circled, then vanished into the dark again. On the Iron Resolve, Admiral Hale leaned forward. "They're not trying to win." His officers looked at him in confusion. "Admiral?" "They're testing us," Hale said, his voice low but certain. "This isn't their fleet. This is only their scouts." The thought chilled the command deck. If these many ships were only scouts, what kind of fleet waited beyond? As the battle slowed, the alien swarm retreated. One by one, their ships vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind only burning wrecks and silence. The fleet did not cheer. There was no victory in the quiet that followed. Rescue wings moved quickly, reaching the surviving station and the broken colonies. Civilians were pulled onto human ships. Medics rushed to save the weak and wounded. Children stared in wonder at the soldiers, clinging to them as if they were heroes from stories. But among the survivors came a warning. A man, barely alive, whispered the truth to Admiral Hale. His voice cracked, his eyes wide with terror. "They're not pirates. They're not raiders. They're a hive, an empire of shadows. What you fought today was nothing. Just their teeth. The swarm is coming. The real swarm." The Admiral said nothing. His jaw tightened. Around him, officers stood in silence. The SOS signal had brought them here. They had answered it, but what they had found was not just a cry for help. It was the first sign of a greater war. Humanity had arrived at the ruins. But the real test was yet to come. The survivors had warned them. The enemy was a hive, a shadow empire that consumed everything in its path. What the fleet had faced already was only the beginning. Admiral Hale stood on the bridge of the Iron Resolve, watching the dark horizon of space beyond Haven Reach. He knew the enemy was still there, waiting. His officers worked quietly, repairing ships, resupplying weapons, and tending to the wounded. But no one dared to relax. The silence after the battle was heavy, like the breath before a storm. "Status?" Hale asked. "Shields restored to 70%. Ammunition at 60. Casualties?" "Heavy, sir," an officer replied. Hale gave a small nod. He had expected worse. Humanity's fleet had survived the first strike, but the hive would not give them peace for long. The warning came quickly. Scanners lit up with new signals, hundreds of them rising out of the void. Ships of black steel and glowing veins, larger than the ones before. They emerged from hyperspace in every direction, surrounding Haven Reach like a tightening noose. The officers froze. One whispered, "By the stars." But Admiral Hale only raised his voice. "All ships, prepare for combat." The deadliest fleet of humanity moved at once. Cruisers swung into formation. Carriers launched fresh fighter wings, filling the dark with swarms of human craft. Destroyers took guard positions around the dreadnoughts, ready to intercept. The enemy came fast. The first wave of hive ships struck like knives. They darted forward in swarms, firing glowing plasma across the void. The air shook inside human ships as shields blazed against the impacts. "Return fire!" Hale commanded. Cannons thundered. The human dreadnoughts unleashed their heavy weapons. Railguns that fired shells the size of houses, energy beams that cut through hulls like paper, missile salvos that streaked like falling stars. Each shot tore into the swarm, ripping apart alien ships in bursts of fire and debris. But for every hive ship destroyed, two more appeared. The battle became chaos. Human fighters weaved through enemy swarms, dogfights blazing across the void. Alien ships screeched through the comm channels, a strange, haunting sound that rattled the human crews. Ships collided, shields cracked, and explosions lit the black sky. On the surface of Haven Reach, survivors looked up. They saw the heavens burning with fire and light. To them, it was as if gods had chosen their skies for war. A destroyer, the Valiant Star, took heavy fire. Plasma ripped through its shields, tearing holes in its armor. Flames spread across its decks. "This is the Valiant Star." "We're hit." The transmission ended in static. On the Iron Resolve, Admiral Hale's jaw tightened. Another ship lost. Another crew gone. Still, the line held. Human ships fought with precision, moving like one body. Their weapons worked together, targeting weak points, covering each other's flanks. The fleet moved, not like machines, but like soldiers in battle trained for years to fight as one. That was humanity's strength. Not just their weapons, but their will. The Hive fought like beasts, wild and hungry. Humanity fought like warriors, disciplined and united. Hours passed. The wreckage of both fleets filled the void. Bodies drifted among shattered hulls. Fires burned across broken stations. But still, neither side gave in. On the command deck, an officer shouted, "Admiral, the swarm is trying to cut us off from the station." Hale's eyes hardened. If the Hive destroyed the station, the survivors would die. And with them, the only proof of what the Hive truly was. "Send the carriers forward," Hale ordered. "Deploy all fighters. Hold the line." The carriers obeyed. Their massive hangar doors opened, releasing wave after wave of fighters. Hundreds of small ships swarmed out, their engines burning bright. Their weapons flashing in unison. They struck like a storm. Fighters tore into the Hive's flank, cutting apart smaller ships, forcing the swarm to turn. Human destroyers followed, blasting holes in the enemy's formation. For the first time, the Hive wavered. On the station, the survivors cheered. "They're winning. Humanity is pushing them back." But victory was still far away. From the darkness, a new signal appeared. Larger than anything before, the enemy's flagship. It emerged slowly, a monstrous vessel of black steel and glowing red veins. Its hull was jagged, like the bones of some dead beast. Its weapons glowed brighter than stars. Even the bravest human officers felt their blood run cold. The Hive had revealed its true strength. The massive ship opened fire. One blast tore straight through a human cruiser, splitting it in half. Another beam cut across the fleet, striking 2 destroyers at once. The human line shook. For the first time, it threatened to break. Admiral Hale did not blink. His voice cut through the chaos like steel. "All ships focus fire on that flagship. Fighters, target its weak points. Dreadnoughts, with me, open everything we have." The fleet obeyed. The Iron Resolve led the charge, its massive cannons glowing with deadly energy. Alongside it, the other dreadnoughts unleashed everything in their arsenals: railguns, missiles, energy beams, all striking at the Hive flagship. The void erupted with fire. The enemy ship staggered under the assault, its shields blazing, its hull cracking. Fighters dove across its surface, blasting its weapons, tearing into its armor. The swarm tried to protect it, but the humans pushed harder, refusing to yield. Finally, with a roar of energy, the Hive flagship exploded. A shockwave tore across the battlefield, sending wreckage flying in every direction. For a moment, silence returned. Then the swarm broke. Without their flagship, the enemy ships retreated, vanishing into hyperspace. The battlefield was theirs. The survivors cheered. Human crews wept and embraced. For now they had won. But Admiral Hale stood silent. His eyes were still fixed on the dark. He knew this was only the first clash. The Hive would return, stronger. This was not the end. It was only the beginning. The battlefield around Haven Reach was silent at last. Debris drifted across the void, burning fragments of Hive ships, shattered human hulls, and the cold remains of those who had fought and died. For the survivors on the station, the sight of humanity's fleet still holding formation was a miracle. They had seen the Hive swarm retreat. They had watched the enemy's flagship explode. To them, it looked like victory, but on the flagship Iron Resolve, Admiral Hale's face remained stern. He knew better. The Hive had not been beaten. They had only pulled back, and Hale had learned long ago that an enemy who retreats is often more dangerous than one who stands and fights. Reports came in from across the fleet. 3 destroyers lost, 1 cruiser gone, 2 carriers damaged, fighters reduced by nearly half. Casualties in the thousands, Admiral, each word cut deep. Hale listened, then gave a quiet order. Begin recovery of the wreckage. Gather survivors. No one is left behind. Rescue craft darted into the battlefield, pulling escape pods from the dark. Medics rushed to treat the wounded. Engineers began repairs, even as their ships still smoked from battle. Humanity had endured, but only just. Then came a new report. "Admiral, we've secured one of the enemy wrecks. It's mostly intact. The Science Division requests permission to investigate." Hale nodded. Send them in. I want to know what we're facing. The science vessel Aurora attached itself to the alien wreck. Its teams entered cautiously, their suits glowing in the dark. Inside, the air was thick with strange mist. The walls pulsed as if alive, covered in black growth and glowing veins. One scientist whispered through the comms, "It feels like the ship is breathing." The deeper they went, the more disturbing it became. The ship was not built, it was grown. Its weapons, its engines, its structure, all of it looked alive, as though the hive shaped living matter into war machines. At the center, they found something worse, pods, hundreds of them filled with dark liquid. Inside floated twisted shapes, half-formed creatures with claws and teeth. Soldiers in the making. When the report reached Admiral Hale, the command deck fell silent. "They don't just build ships," an officer said in horror. "They grow them, and they grow their armies too," another whispered. But the worst truth came when the survivors from the station were brought aboard. Among them was a scientist from Haven Reach, pale and trembling. He begged to see the Admiral. When Hale granted it, the man spoke quickly, his voice shaking. "You don't understand," he said. "What you fought today wasn't their army. It wasn't even their fleet. It was only their vanguard." The room grew colder. Officers leaned in. "The Hive sent only scouts," the man continued. "Their real fleet is still coming. Entire armadas, billions of soldiers. They consume star systems, Admiral. They don't stop. They don't retreat. What you saw today was only the first bite." The Admiral's jaw tightened. He had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed filled the air with dread. A junior officer whispered, "Then we've walked into a trap." Hale looked at him. "Not walked. We were invited." The officers froze as his words sank in. The SOS signal, the desperate cry that had brought them here. Had it been genuine? Or had the Hive used it to lure humanity's fleet into the open? If it was a trap, then it had worked. The human fleet had come. They had revealed their strength, their weapons, their tactics. And the Hive had been watching, learning. The realization spread through the deck like fire. They had not only answered a call for help, they had given the Hive a chance to study them. The Admiral turned away, his gaze on the stars. His voice was steady, but his eyes were hard. "Send word to Earth," he said. "Tell them what we've learned. The Hive isn't coming for just one colony. They're coming for everything." Orders went out. Messengers carried warnings across the galaxy. Some human colonies began to prepare, but the other species, the great alien empires who had ignored the SOS, remained silent. Some did not believe. Others simply hoped humanity would be the Hive's first and only target. Back on Haven Reach, the survivors were moved to safety. Children clutched soldiers' hands. Parents whispered thanks. But behind every grateful face was fear, fear of what would come next. In the stillness of night, Admiral Hale walked the observation deck of the Iron Resolve. He looked down at the scarred planet and the wreckage of ships drifting in the void. He knew the truth. The first clash had been a warning. The trap had been revealed. And soon, the galaxy would see the full swarm. But Hale also knew something else. If humanity was to stand against the Hive, they would not hide. They would not beg. They would not wait for help that would never come. When the swarm came, humanity would fight, and the deadliest fleet of Earth would be the first to meet them. The galaxy was holding its breath. Across human space, colonies replayed the battle footage from Haven Reach. Families watched the Hive ships tear through steel as if it were paper. They saw the swarm retreat, but also heard the terrible truth that more were coming. Many felt fear. Some even whispered surrender. But on Earth, the response was different. The leaders of the United Terran Command gathered in the War Council chamber, a vast circle of glass and steel overlooking the planet. Military chiefs, scientists, and representatives from every colony sat in silence as Admiral Hale's message was played. When it ended, a heavy stillness filled the room. The Prime Minister of Earth leaned forward. "If the Hive is truly as endless as the reports say, then waiting will doom us. We must strike first. We must carry the war to them." Not everyone agreed. Some argued that humanity was still too young, too fractured, too unprepared. But others knew there was no choice. The hive would not stop until every city, every world, every child was consumed. So for the first time in history, humanity united not in defense, but in offense. The plan was bold. Instead of waiting for the swarm, the deadliest fleet of Earth would attack the hive directly. They would strike their forward breeding grounds, destroy their birthing nests, and cripple their ability to grow. It was dangerous. It was desperate. But if it worked, it might buy humanity the time it needed to rally the galaxy. Preparations began at once. Shipyards on Mars burned day and night. Engineers designed new weapons, fusion lances, plasma storms, and torpedoes built to pierce living armor. Soldiers trained in vacuum drills, learning how to fight inside the very hive ships they hoped to capture or destroy. And while the armies prepared, spies and scouts searched for the hive's hidden lairs. It was Captain Vera, commander of the stealth frigate Shadowwing, who found it first. Her crew discovered a nest world near the rim of the galaxy, a planet that pulsed with life from orbit. From space, it looked like a world covered in forests. But as they drew closer, they saw the truth. The forests were not trees. They were towers of flesh, growing out of the ground, spewing black mist into the air. Beneath the surface, the entire crust of the planet seemed to move, as if the world itself was alive. It was a birthing ground. Billions of hive creatures grew within it, waiting to be unleashed. When her report reached Admiral Hale, he gave only one order: we burn it. The deadliest fleet gathered at the edge of the system. Thousands of ships. Fighters swarmed like schools of fish around massive carriers. Battleships lined up, their cannons glowing. But before the attack, Hale spoke to his crews. His face appeared on every screen, in every barrack, on every bridge. "Soldiers of Earth," he said, "today we do not fight for one colony. We do not fight for one world. We fight for all of humanity. The hive believes we will hide. They believe we will run, but they do not understand us. They do not know that when humanity is threatened, we strike back. And today, we strike harder than they can imagine." The speech lit fire in every heart. The attack began. The fleet jumped into the system, engines tearing space apart as they appeared above the hive world. For a moment, silence. Then the planet seemed to awaken. The ground split open, and massive towers rose into the sky. Out of them poured hive ships. Small ones, fast and sharp, followed by enormous behemoths that blotted out the stars. The swarm had been waiting. The battle exploded instantly. Human fighters clashed with alien drones, the void lit by plasma trails and missile fire. Battleships fired lances that burned holes through hive cruisers. Carriers unleashed wave after wave of bombers, each one diving into the swarm like arrows. But the hive was endless. For every ship destroyed, two more seemed to emerge. They moved with terrifying unity, guided by a mind greater than any single creature. Then came the counterstroke. From the birthing towers on the planet's surface, massive biocannons fired into orbit. The blasts were not energy but living projectiles. Creatures wrapped in armor that slammed into human ships and burrowed inside like parasites. Some vessels went dark within minutes, consumed from within. Admiral Hale ordered a risky maneuver. "Target the planet itself. We cut the nest at its heart." The fleet shifted. Instead of focusing on enemy ships, they unleashed fire on the world below. Nuclear lances burned through towers. Planet-buster bombs fell like meteors, exploding with force that shook the crust. The surface writhed in pain. Black rivers of molten matter spilled from the wounds. But still the hive fought back, refusing to die. Finally, Hale gave the order no one expected: deploy the Titan. The Titan was Earth's most secret weapon, a ship so large it had never left dock. A mobile fortress armed with weapons designed to shatter moons. It descended into the battlefield like a god of war, its cannons blazing. One shot from its main weapon tore a birthing tower out of existence. Another shattered an enemy behemoth into pieces. The Titan's arrival broke the hive's rhythm. Seizing the moment, Hale pressed the advantage. "All ships, concentrate fire. Break them!" For the first time, the swarm faltered. The sky burned with fire, the nest world cracked, and the hive ships withdrew in disarray. When the battle ended, the deadliest fleet stood victorious. The nest world was in ruins. Billions of unborn soldiers destroyed before they could ever fight, but the cost was terrible. Hundreds of ships lost, tens of thousands dead, and the Titan itself scarred from battle. Still, as the survivors looked at the burning world below, they knew something had changed. Humanity had proven it could strike back. The swarm would come again, stronger, angrier. But now the galaxy knew humanity was no prey. It was a predator too. The battlefield was silent at last. Where once there had been chaos, only drifting wrecks now floated. Alien corpses turned slowly in the dark, their broken shells lit by the faint glow of ruined ships. Human vessels, though battered, stood in formation, their hulls scarred but proud. The deadliest fleet had won. Admiral Hale watched the shattered hive world through the viewport of his flagship. The planet cracked and burned below, rivers of molten fire carving deep scars across its surface. Towers of flesh still writhed, but their movement was weak now, fading with every moment. It was over. At least this battle. His officers waited quietly behind him, afraid to disturb the silence. Finally, Hale spoke. "Transmit to Earth. Tell them, mission complete. The nest world is destroyed." The words carried across every channel, every surviving ship. Cheers erupted in mess halls and on bridges. Soldiers embraced, pilots wept inside their cockpits, medics whispered thanks to the stars. For the first time since the SOS was heard, hope flickered in human hearts, but that hope carried weight. The fleet had paid dearly. Hundreds of ships gone, tens of thousands of lives lost. The Titan itself, though still afloat, bore scars like open wounds, giant craters in its armor, half its weapons silent. Hale knew the price of victory, and he knew something else too. The hive was not defeated, only delayed. As the fleet regrouped, messages from across the galaxy poured in. Alien worlds that had once mocked or ignored humanity now spoke with respect, some with fear. They had seen the recordings, the moment Earth's Titan had cut through the swarm, like fire through dry leaves. To many, humanity was no longer prey. It was a predator. But even as praise spread, Hale gathered his officers for one last council. In the dim light of the war room, holomaps showed the ruined hive world. Yet new signals appeared at the edges, faint echoes of more activity. The swarm was stirring in other corners of the galaxy. "They will return," said Commander Vera, voice low. "We hurt them, but we did not break them. Their kind does not forgive. Their kind does not stop." "And when they come," Hale answered, "we will meet them again. But next time, we cannot stand alone." He turned to his officers. "Prepare a message for the galaxy. Every world, every species, they must hear this." Soon, across countless systems, Admiral Hale's voice played on every channel. His face, lined with exhaustion, stared directly into the cameras. Today, humanity answered a call for help. "We did not come for conquest. We did not come for power. We came because innocent lives cried out, and no one else dared to stand. We fought the hive. We bled, and we prevailed. But hear me now, this was not the end." The swarm spread still, growing in the dark, hungering for every world. Alone, no species can survive them. Together, maybe we can. So I give this warning and this promise. Humanity will not run. Humanity will not hide. If the swarm comes, Earth will stand. And if you wish to stand with us, then stand ready. The words spread like wildfire. Some alien leaders scoffed, still unwilling to trust the young species. Others whispered in secret meetings, wondering if perhaps humanity was right. And a few, for the first time, reached out with offers of alliance. But beyond politics and speeches, the survivors of Haven Reach knew the truth in their bones. Humanity had changed that day. They had proven not only to the galaxy, but to themselves, that they could fight the endless dark and survive. Still, as the fleet turned for home, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. Admiral Hale stood on the bridge, watching them stretch into infinity. He thought of the lives lost, the ships that would never return, the families waiting for news. He thought of the hive, always hungering, always building. The war was not over. Perhaps it never would be. But now the galaxy knew the truth. Humanity was no victim. Humanity was no prey. Humanity was the deadliest fleet. And when the next SOS was heard, there would be no question of who would answer. The flagship engines roared to life. One by one, the battered survivors followed, leaving the broken hive world behind. In the dark silence of space, a faint signal pulsed from far away. Another call for help. Another cry of fear. Hale's eyes narrowed. "Plot a course," he ordered. "We're not done yet." The crew obeyed, their hands steady, their hearts burning with fire. The stars ahead shimmered with danger, but also with destiny, because humanity had made its choice. When the galaxy cried out, Earth would always respond.